You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And welcome to The Mountain Gardener. This is your host, Ken Lane. We're here talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona, and this is really why we live here. There's a storm last weekend, and then it's just super nice the rest of the week, and this is just how it will be. I mean, January, pretty much we're done with January. It's our coldest month. We're not done with the cold, though. I mean, our average last frost date for most of northern Arizona. Now, there's a little difference. Yes, I know you folks in Flagstaff, Pinetop Lakeside, the higher altitude folks, your Memorial Day or so. So the end of May is your last average frost, but you're gardening way before that. You just got to watch those last frosts. The deep freeze is pretty much, it will thaw out and it will just get nicer, nicer, nicer from here. The rest of the county, rest of the state, rest of this central highland area, really the holiday that we use is Mother's Day, the first weekend in May. Now that can vary. This is 100 years of data we've been tracking, so we know what the average frost date. The problem with averages is nature doesn't read averages. They're either before or after. So the blended date is May 8th for Prescott, Arizona. Here, I'd say the same for Payson. A little bit earlier for Kingman, a little bit earlier for Cottonwood, Sedona, those areas, the warmer areas. Or an east-facing mountain like, let's say, Jerome. You're going to warm up faster. Or a north-facing like Highland Pines, those areas, that's under the pines and north side of a hill, even though it's at only 5,800, 6,200 feet, it still is colder because you're more shaded. So it depends on what side of the hill you're at and your elevation. There's two variables there that will play with your frost dates. But on average, what the locals use for the Central Highlands, and this is one you really want to write down and know. You want to break that phone out and start making a note going, May 8th. Locals use Mother's Day as the holiday for when the last frost date is. That's when you start to put in your tomatoes. That's when you start putting your watermelons and your summer-loving zinnias and vincas, or before that, we can have some frost. There's some things that love that. So right now, this week, we got in the most gorgeous pansy baskets. These are big. They must be 2 feet across, covered in flowers. But pansies, they love snow. They loved everything about last weekend. They like to bloom in that. So my pansies have been out all winter. Violas all winter. Kale all winter. There's some winter-loving cool season things that celebrate. What they'll do is they'll poop out when it gets to summer. By June, middle of June, the pansies go, it's too hot. I can't take this anymore. And no matter how much water you put on them, they collapse and die. And that's when you flip out and you put your marigolds, you put your zinnias and your geraniums, you put that summer-loving stuff in. So there's a seasonality to things. We're so nice that a lot of you new timers, this is you newbies, you just started this, your first season here, you're going to get tricked, especially if you're from nicer areas where it just gets, Palm Springs, Phoenix, Scottsdale. It's nice all the time. You're going to think, it's going to be like this and stay like this, and we won't see any more storms racing across the desert, dumping 2 inches of snow on us and then racing off, and then we're not going to see any more of that. I guarantee you we will. And we want to. We need the moisture. The forests need that moisture. So I'm counting on it because it always happens. Typically that happens through March, first part of April, and then it just gets nicer and nicer and nicer. The fear I have from you new folks, I'm going to come to the garden center and go, I'm looking for my tomatoes. I want them now. You don't realize it's 6-8 weeks before the last frost is really here. And so you plant too early out in the yard, and so they get zipped, they get killed off or top burned by the frost. because tomatoes are a tropical plant. They don't like anything to do with frost. They want to be planted after the last frost date or protected in a greenhouse or protected in, they make fancy cells. They call them walls of water or plant protectors. They kind of create a mini greenhouse around each individual plant. If you aren't protecting those summer-loving plants, when you plant them real early before the last frost date, they're just going to be damaged or stunted, or they just don't like the cold soils. But there's a whole series of things. Like right now, we've got a whole load of aspens in. Aspens love everything about being planted right now. So this is a great time to put in a new aspen cluster or a row of them. This is the time when you start to put in fruit trees. They like this. They like to be planted when it's dormant out. I think in 2 weeks we have our conifers coming. The conifers are evergreens, your spruce and pine, and these are cookie cutter, picture perfect spruce and pine and fir and cedars and cypress. They're stunning. They actually prefer to be planted before it gets hot. They like to root out. They like to be in the ground, start to root out in your surrounding soil, and then wake up as the season wakes up. They like to be invigorated, come on the same cycle. We call them acclimated to our climate. So getting them in early acclimates them so they wake up when all of the other pine trees and conifers are waking up. So you can plant some things now. It's good. But you need to know where your frost dates are so you know when to put in the summer-loving things and when to put in the spring-loving things. So that's frost dates. This whole show is about advice for newcomers or just upping your game. If you just want to have a few insider tips. And so I want to sprinkle some of this knowledge, some of this so that you're armed and dangerous for the season as it progresses. This year, you're going to be a better gardener in your own backyard. So if we're doing frost dates, we got to go first and last frost dates, right? So the last frost date, Mother's Day. For the lower elevations. For the higher elevations, it's Memorial Day. The first frost date, that is, I'm growing, things are just great, fall is in the air, the colors are starting. So usually autumn is when the first frost happens as we go into winter. The first frost date for the Central Highlands is October 29th. Okay, it's a little bit earlier for high elevations. Let's say October, first part of October for the high elevations of the East Mountains, White Mountains and Flagstaff, Williams, those folks. I would say it's really Halloween is the holiday that we use here locally in the Central Highlands. Usually it's going to be chilly when you go out with the kids to collect candies. That's your first and last frost dates. With that, we also vary, not just with our frost dates, but the mountains of Arizona varies in our altitude. So the elevation is going to make a difference in your gardening, especially if you're coming from a coastal or lowland kind of desert type of location. I would say flatlanders like in Tucson, Scottsdale, Phoenix, those areas, that's a totally different elevation. You're at not even 2,000 feet, most of you. So here we're at 5,000 plus, most of us that are tuned into the show today. That's going to vary. That's going to change. That nighttime temperature swing is going to be dramatic. So you can have a 50-degree swing. I've seen that way more than once. In fact, Arizona is famous for having the hottest temperature and coldest temperature in the country in the same state, same day, because of this altitude change. Well, you need to be aware of that. So which plants are affected by huge temperature swings. Do a little bit of homework. Do some reading. Get online. Check things out, or talk to your neighbor who's got a great garden. You go, oh, that's a great looking tree. What is that? I want one too. Because if it's growing in their yard, it'll most likely grow in yours. Or come talk to nursery professionals. That's what the whole show is about. So you get familiar with the cycles and the seasons. We're running out of time for this segment. We got Lisa waiting to come in the studio, but I also want to cover the soil pH. This is totally freaky. We're getting into chemistry of the soil. You'll be a pro, though. It's easy if you know what to look for. We're going over sunshine, wind. Oh, most parts of the country don't know what wind is, but there's a way to deal with it. And so much more on this week's show of The Mountain Gardener. You're tuned in, talking about gardening for newcomers here on The Mountain Gardener. be right back with Lisa Waterslane in the hot seat.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, also known as the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain landscapes.
Hi, Ken with the plants of the week and our majestic giant pansies.
Mammoth blooms smother this 12-inch plant right through winter.
Fragrant like its fairy-faced cousin, this giant bloomer has the perfect balance between evergreen foliage and flower brightness.
Hardy and carefree, this local pansy brings the garden back to life, all for just $5.99.
You'll only find them at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Where people who love majestic pansies, they love to shop.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And we are back with Lisa Waterslane in the studio. Each week, she comes with the garden questions. And so we want to hear what's going on with your neighbors and friends, and you can pick up a lot of garden tips just by listening into other folks' questions, because they've got many of the same questions you do. And so welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you.
So it's kind of a sad day.
How's that?
In my office, I was cleaning up the bookshelves.
Yeah.
And so I threw away all my cassette tapes.
Oh, my gosh. Wait. You threw something away.
I know. I felt sad. A whole trash can full of, I love listening to motivational tapes, how-tos. So I've always got something going on. Some of them are spiritual. So very, as a believer, you kind of always focused on godly stuff. You can always learn something positive that way. Or some of them motivational, business leadership things. I threw them all away, and there was a bunch of them. Now, I didn't throw the CDs away. I still have an entire bookshelf of nothing but CD stuff, but I think it was time to go. I did not throw away the VHS tapes,
I was
though.
just going to ask you, when did the VHS tapes go in the trash?
The grandkids, we still like sitting down in the basement and putting some of those Disney things in.
That's only in your mind.
Yeah, probably so. They're going, what is this low definition stuff?
Yeah.
This is so cheesy.
They're watching it on the iPads or cell phones.
Oh, how things change.
That
My
is true.
goodness. Now everything is either downloaded direct. There's not even a CD. There's nothing. Or I just got the new navigation for the car. It came on a flash drive, a disc, a USB disc.
Yes.
Wow. All in my lifetime. All since graduating from...
And they have airplanes now that fly.
Okay, go ahead, tease me. You're right there with me, gal. So anyway, just struck me when I was cleaning things up, going, wow, that freed up a lot of space. I should have done that years ago.
Do you remember, though, waiting for the new disc or, to come out? And you had to buy the whole CD.
Yeah, I couldn't buy just a song. You had to buy the whole album. Sorry. Yeah, never mind. She teases me for the way I say album.
But you don't say album.
I know. I don't say it right. It's my southern boy in me. Just can't pronounce that.
I'll let it go.
Yeah. So I guess we should go into garden questions, huh?
Okay.
So good transition.
So Janelle lives out in Chino. She has a couple questions on pruning fruit trees.
Yeah.
Number 1, can she start now? And number 2, how old does a tree need to be before you start really doing some sizable pruning on it?
Sure. Yeah, good questions. Your timing's impeccable. So we generally use locally after the new year. So we wait till the new year through about March. So the window's pretty large. Pick a nice day when you want to get out some fresh air and power up the chainsaw. Go for it. How much, how old, how big does it need to be? That's totally different. And there's whole techniques on it. That's when do some homework, hit the library, get a book, do some internet search, or take a picture of the tree with an iPad, bring it in. We could show you what to do. Really, you get it up to size, and then you'll know when it's time to start pruning because it looks overgrown. You'll see branches growing to the inside all of a sudden. Your fruit production becomes less. The fruits are smaller just because you haven't done that maintenance to it. I would say the tree is usually in the ground for 3-4 years before you really have to do any real pruning. Now, we do some pruning, like I was just trimming some of our fruit trees here because I want them to wake up, and I'm controlling the bud growth, which direction they're growing. But our trees are already, we're famous for trees that are of fruiting age. Fruit trees have to be about 7 years old before they'll actually start fruiting. So all of our trees are that large, that old, so they'll fruit right in the racks right here. You have to actually control the shape. So we want the scaffolding, the weight, the branches that hold all that weight to be in the right direction. So we've been trimming some of that. But if you're buying a nice tree that's already been done, or that's already been done for you, it's in the ground, I'd say let it grow. And the only thing you really have to watch, certain varieties will get a wild hair. Pears are famous for this. Sometimes your plums, they'll focus all their energy on one branch growing out. You'll see, oh, that's out of balance. What's that one branch doing way out of there? I would say mainly shape it so it grows within balance, a balance to each other. But after that, let it get up to size some until you start to see it growing towards the inside. It's looking like a thicket, not an openness. The inside of a fruit tree should have open air and sunlight. That's what keeps the insects and disease down. Spotting of your pitted fruits like plums, peaches, apricots, nectarines. There's some disease that can happen if they're so packed they can't breathe. They'll get some leaf spot. You'll get some more codling moth on apples and pears. If you get too big, the little tiny moth just goes rampant inside there. So it's a way to control the growth. But that's it. Bring an iPad, take a picture, and let us help you with it more, or do some homework on it. But that's the answer to that question.
Okay. And any of those suckers that are coming up out of the ground, out of the root, definitely want to cut those back.
Yeah. Suckers, some trees are more prone to sucker. I notice the apples tend to sucker a little bit more. That one be violent, not a thin, neat cut.
Yeah.
It's much like a cut on your arm. A nice thin slice with a razor blade heals right up. But if it's a gouged thing that's just raw and open, it doesn't heal as quickly. Well, apples are just the same way. Really rip that thing off so it's less likely to heal up and start suckering again right away. Mm-hmm. Of course, I like my weed whacker or
yes.
lawnmower or any of those devices.
Do not encourage people to get out their weed whacker.
Come on, man. You understand big power equipment. Let's go.
I can see scars on tree trunks right now.
I've got to prune some pampas grass back here at the shop. I'm going, honey, let's come in and I'm going to buy a new hedger. That's just brand new blades. We can make those babies go away in a flash. And your answer was?
I don't think we can say that on
it. What else we got?
So Wendell wants to know, after he puts out the wildflower seed, how often should you water that, or should you water that?
Yeah, that's good. Now, it's not a lot of watering needed because they are wild. They will come up. If you got a good seed mix, it should come up on the same cycle as all the rest of the wildflowers and wildflower seed that are in your yard or in the mountainsides. And so it shouldn't take a lot, generally about once a week if we don't get a storm. So like this week, we had enough moisture with that snow. I know it wasn't a lot of moisture, but it was enough to get you through. So you sort of monitor. We actually come into a little bit of a wet cycle. So into February through March, if you look at the history of the mountains, there's some more moisture in those months. Probably it'll carry you, but monitor that. Usually what I like to do for a patch of wildflowers, I'll put a soaker hose down and weave it through that area. And I may or may not leave it connected to the hose, but I'll just like turn it on once a week, let it soak for a little bit while I'm praying for rain. So, but about once a week or so. And then also watch it, because what's going to happen, depending on how you prepped that soil, it may actually be some of the weeds everything will start growing in that area, not just the seed, because you're watering and caring. You fertilize that area, you put the all-purpose plant food over it. It's ready to go. So, and wildflowers, they sort of look like weeds when they first come up. And so you really be careful. I would say if you put the biggest mistake I hear from customers is they're not doing their own landscaping, or they're doing it through a maintenance company, or the community maintenance guys doing it for you. And they come in, they have no clue what they're doing. And they come in and weed whack or spray or kill off your wildflowers because they just came up, they're just starting to look like weeds, and a lot of them, but they were actually flowers, and they kill off or cut back their wildflowers. Don't put a flag or be very instructive. Tell them, do not do anything with this area. These are my wildflowers. Don't kill them. I just hear that over, and I'll hear it again this year. Every year it's the same. My maintenance guys killed off my new wildflower patch. That's the main thing to watch if you got maintenance people helping you. Well, Lisa, good questions. We'll be back with more on the Mountain Gardeners with Ken and Lisa Lane. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
In a new place, it's difficult to know who to trust, how to get help at the house, and which nursery will simply do what they say they'll do.
At Waters Garden Center, we're here to help, in the landscape at least.
Our team of plant ambassadors know your neighborhood, the plants that add color, increase privacy, and add fragrance and beauty.
And we can show you exactly how to plant locally, or we have teams to do all the work for you.
We are Ken and Lisa Lane, and we guarantee our plants will live up to every promise here at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
If ever there was something you should put on your radar this time of year, it would be soil preparation. Now, we don't have soil here in northern Arizona. Mainly what happens, because of the way our monsoonal rains happen, we get some leaf molds. The pine trees drop needles. The oaks drop. We have some grasses in the prairies. But what happens is, as that organic matter composts, it starts to break down and creates mulch or topsoil in your yard. Well, what happens is these big rains will come in July, August, September, and they come down at such a ferocious rate, it picks up the organic matter and floats it downhill. It takes it downstream. So what you'll find is the flatlands of the Verde River, Kirkland Creek down in Skull Valley and Kirkland area, Phoenix, that whole Salt River area, all of that is all the organics from the mountains are picked up and taken down the water streams and flushed out on these silty ponds. So the farmland is incredible in those areas because they have all of our organic matters breaking down. So it gets, just because of the rains, picks it up and floats it downhill. That's why we have a lack of nice soils. That lack of soils at all, not just nice, any soil, lots of rocks, just picked up. The wind and the rains just wash away or wind swept away our soils. So you'll need to amend or create soils in your own yard. This is the time of year to do that. I won't even go into, some of you folks have new houses. The backhoe came in and they just leveled that house. I mean, any topsoil you might have had was scraped off and pushed off to the side, maybe even over the side of the hill, so to make room for your footers and your driveway. So some of you are actually dealing with zero, not one living thing is in your soil. There's no topsoil whatsoever. This is where the worms and mycorrhizal fungi and organics, the living, breathing things that live in the soil, they are what tickle the feet of plants, and so that they want to root out and grow. If you don't have that, and you just take a tree, let's say you bought a new spruce tree and you threw it in the ground without any preparation, that plant may not die, but it won't grow. It'll be off color. It'll shoot off some needles. It just won't really perform well because the soil is dead. So you need to reinvigorate that soil. It's impossible to do it for your entire yard, but you can definitely do it for a planting hole, for a tree or a shrub or a blackberry or rose. You can do it for that. Or you can do it for a raised bed or a garden area. I want my flowers out here. I've got 300 square feet of nothing but, I love dahlias. I'm going to grow those. Or I want to grow tomatoes, a salsa garden. You can amend that area. This is the time of year when you do that. So if you're putting in a new aspen tree or new maple tree, we just got a whole new load of red maples. They're not leafed out yet, but they are budded very heavily. They're looking forward to spring. You can tell they're going to be glorious when they open up. You can plant that right now, but when you plant it, you'll need to create a garden soil so those roots go, oh, something's going on here. And the way you do that is you add organic matter. So I wanted to cover how to get the soils ready, especially a planting hole for an individual plant. So whenever you plant, you need at least 3 things, the most important of which is mulch or compost. Now, you folks from the Midwest, you call mulch basically bark or green waste. It's just chipped up wood thrown on the ground. That's mulch, or pine needles for the South. That's what you guys call mulch. Not so. Here I'm talking about a composted material that's broken down, and the last elements are this rich, dark, mocha-colored, humic acid-based material. You want that. You want compost. That's what you want to add into your hole. Most of you have very thick, heavy clay, if not boulders. So your digging hole, it's only as deep as the root ball that you're planting. So it's a big tree. Maybe it's only got an 18-inch root ball. You only go down 18 inches, but you go wide. You have a 3 times the width of that root ball. That's the planting width of the hole. The depth is the same bucket. So the water's going to go through all that, and it'll hit that soil or clay underneath that root ball and just sit there. The roots don't go down. There's nothing down there for them, but more clay and rocks. They always go sideways. You look at any native, the roots go down maybe a foot, and then they hook a right to a left, and they just start spreading out and going sideways. If that's how nature is going to force your plants to grow here locally, that's how you want to dig your hole. Any debris in that soil that's bigger than a golf ball, filter it out, screen it. Then you want to add that compost I mentioned. You want to blend that into that native soil, about 25% to 75%. 25% mulch to your native soil, or about 1 shovel scoop of mulch for every 3 shovels of native soil. Blend that together and then backfill around that root ball. That's going to add enough organic where worms, it'll ignite your mycorrhizal fungi in that soil. It'll make everything come alive. That's the secret to really making that soil come alive again, even if you've got dead soil. We'll go into the other 2 ingredients, but got Lisa Waterslane coming back in the studio with her garden advice. I don't want to miss that. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Not everyone can grow wildflowers, but we'll make sure you're not one of them.
At Waters, we know which wildflowers sprout, thrive, and bloom with success.
We're wild about wildflowers, with many of our own Arizona blends.
Like our Arizona native mix, butterfly and hummingbird mixes, and all are big, bold, and beautiful.
At Waters, we know wildflowers, and winter's a season to spread new seed.
Waters Garden Center, where people who love their flowers wild, they love to shop for seed.
So we are back in the studio. This segment is just for gardening advice from Lisa's angle. So she comes back, Lisa Waterslane, back in the studio just to share her intuition, her expertise, or what she's hearing from customers, or just what's on her heart or in her gardens. And so we just give the whole segment just to her. Welcome back, Lisa.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So what you got for us this week?
Well, it's winter. I'm sorry. There's nothing going on.
We're going to El Paso and visit the grandkids. Actually, we are doing that next week.
We are.
So
pretty excited about that.
We are.
Yes.
Our boy is in the Army, 1st Armored Division. He's a Army PA, physician assistant. And so he's in there. He's at that hospital, which is great. It's a huge base, ginormous, with a even bigger hospital. So he gets lots of experience. Mm-hmm. So it looks like he's going to be going off in June to a new tour someplace. We don't know where.
They were discussing where to go. They put down. You get to put down where you want to go, and then the Army sends you where they
want you to go. They give you the illusion of control, but really they're going to put you wherever you want.
Right. So they were having big discussions about what should we put down, where do we want to go.
I told them Germany or Hawaii, but
I think those are pretty popular.
I have
this
a
is
feeling,
kind of like he's still kind of
new guy out.
Yeah, he's not the big uppity ups yet. So
he becomes a first lieutenant. Mm-hmm. June 5th, I believe. Is that right? That's the ceremony. So he's a sergeant right now. So he came up through the ranks. He went in as a private, did a tour through Afghanistan. He was a medic in Afghanistan, came back, signed up, signed on for another few years, and now he put a packet in for the PA program, and he is the second youngest soldier person in that class. He's just, it's amazing what he's done. When that light switch came on for him, he just went, this is what I want. I'm going to do it. And he went for it. It's so exciting to see that boy to man thing. He did. That's what we all need. Live for passion, not for whatever else we live for. Stuff, money, just that doesn't make you happy.
Right.
But waking up every morning, loving what you do, making a difference, that's passion. He's got it.
That's true.
Then his wife is a nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
So just the dynamic duo, the two of them.
Yeah. They're fun family. I'm excited to go see them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're living their passion. But when you said that, it made me think I'm so excited because I start looking at this time of year and looking at, okay, what trucks are coming?
Yeah.
When are they coming in? What's going to be on them? It's just fun for me to look and see what's coming on. I met with our annual grower, our flower grower, a couple weeks ago, and we're like, ooh, what's new coming out? So we were looking at all the new things that are coming out. We're trying to decide, okay, what do we order? How many of those do we get? And different things. So it's a fun time of year to be looking ahead, looking at spring. What's it going to look like? What are we bringing in? And that's when I realized, what my passion is.
Yeah.
And it's that bringing things in that make people's yards beautiful and colorful and makes them want to get out in their yard and do things. So
I kind of thought of it as you described it. We're basically Santa Claus for gardeners. And so we create, we're not in the North Pole, we're here in Prescott, Arizona, where we're bringing in things that we think this Central Highlands, this area, we have an influence all the way out to, we get a lot of folks from Cottonwood, Camp Verde, even Sedona, Cordes Junction, all the way out to Baghdad and Kirkland. We even get folks from Ashford. Thank you guys for tuning in and following us, all 100 of you, or however many are up there. But we get them from all over because we're kind of we're a wow garden center. We're like over the top. We've just designed this to be something that's inspirational, and that's what we want. That's how we just made Business of the Year for Quad City News. So it's we make that all the time. We get quite a few accolades. We've been the best garden center in the country, voted by our peers just over the years for what we do for our community. But that's the passion, though, is the plants are so fun, and that joy, I think, spills out to the customers that come through. They sense that and go, ooh, that's neat. I haven't seen that.
Right. And I think the other thing, too, people are moving from so many different other parts of the country, and they move here, and they're a little bit hesitant or unsure. And the part of the fun is showing them what they can grow here, what does well here. You can make your yard pretty here. It doesn't have to be a moonscape. you can make it pretty. You can have green and growing beautiful things here. And so that is a passion of mine, of ours, of everybody
Sure.
here at Waters is doing that.
We hire a lot of customers just because they want the employee discount, or they just like to hang out with the plants. We've got one maintenance contractor. She is just a delight, but she likes to volunteer. She knows when the trucks come in. Mm-hmm. She goes, "Can I just help you for free? Because I want to up my game, learn more. And then I want first pickings for my clients." That's kind of going, wow, that's passion. Mm-hmm. That's way more than just, it's a contract. I have to be here once a month to do your yard. That's way more than that. This is a delight that makes your heart go pitter patter in the yard. Anything new you want to share or something?
I knew you were going to hit me up for that. Now I'm trying to blank.
Okay, no. I know you had on top of your desk is like a mountain of different contract grows that we have for different folks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything from, if you're a rose person, you've got to check us out this year because we have some spectacular roses. Everything from the tea roses, the grandifloras. We're getting in some amazing shrub roses this year. And roses do really well in our area.
Amazingly well, yeah.
And the new roses that they're coming out with, particularly the shrub roses, you don't have to fuss over those things. You know, everybody's like, "Oh, I can't do roses. They're too scary." The shrub roses are amazingly easy to grow, and they're disease resistant. They don't get all the issues that some of your great grandma's roses used to get.
Great grandma, huh? Yeah, I'm most excited about that first edition series from Bailey Nursery out of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. They've created a whole new series of shrub roses. These are old-fashioned roses that look like hybrid teas, darn close to it, and they're fragrant. There's never been a shrub rose that was fragrant. Mm-hmm. They developed some, so we're going to introduce those this year, probably mid-spring. So it's not going to be, we'll bring those in after the last frost, and we really see that we will bring them in full bloom, and we don't have to worry about frost damaging the flowers. It won't hurt the bush. It just takes the flowers out.
Right.
So when's the date? Do you have that for all those? We have like 600 roses coming in April. Is that right?
So in February, we have our dormant roses coming in.
Okay.
So those will be in a fiber pot.
Yep.
They won't be green and growing. They won't have blooms on them, but they'll be very nice, dormant, sleeping roses that you can plant now. They like the cold weather. You can put them in now. And then end of April, we get the glorious, they sing Alleluia out in the parking lot. You know, big leafed out, beautiful buds. We're getting, 400 or 500 of those in end of April. And then plus we'll be getting that shrub rose series in.
So it's a whole seasonality of things. Mm-hmm. So we'll bring those in when we think the last frost or the risk of deep frost is done. Right. And the entire front of the parking lot will be nothing but hundreds and hundreds of roses. And at the end of the day, I go home with a very sore back and scratched up arms everywhere as we lay these things out all over the whole front. I mean, it's glorious. It's fun.
It's glorious.
It's exciting to see that. But the dormant ones in February, those are going to be mainly the new introductions, the late things that are hard to find, hard to get. You want to snag those now because there won't be any later. Those are the ones you want to grab. So your true rosarians, those you want to start looking at then and plant those in.
Better than your bare roots that you find at other places because they are fully rooted out in that pot. So they have a nice root system. They're strong. They're healthy. They're not going to have this little tiny, weeny root system that
Maybe we should cover that. And that's bare root roses you're seeing in places now. They're basically grown in a field. They ripped up, and they have no soil on the roots. Thus the name bare root. So stay away from those folks. Unless you like to be frustrated and angry and bitter and just think you're a bad gardener. It's not you. We do not do bare root very well here because it's so dry, so windy, and the soil is so alkaline, they just shrivel and die. Almost at 50% loss rate. When we finally gave up going, we're not noted as a place to frustrate our gardeners. Right. So we bring them in pre-rooted. So we potted them up way before and fully rooted. Anyway, we go on and on.
That's another story.
Ken and Lisa Lane and the Mountain Gardeners, thanks for coming in, Lisa, and sharing your passion, by the way. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
As the days get longer and brighter, houseplants can struggle and scorch, but we have the solution.
At Waters, we've organized our houseplants from A to Z for the brightest of sunny locations, many even bloom.
With experts that know plants and how to make them grow.
Shipments of the freshest houseplants in town have just arrived from A to Z and ready for a bright new home.
Waters Garden Center, where people who love bright green houseplants, they love to shop, found in Prescott. All right, so it's always good to have Lisa in the studio sharing her heart and soul, which is what she does for our family business, for our family. I look at her as the glue that keeps us all together. I kind of drive us forward and kind of open up new grounds, and I always have some creative harebrained thing. And then she mops up the mess and keeps it all together and gets the crew to sing Kumbaya, and it's just enjoyable place to work. And that's what I think so many places you go, and it's not an enjoyable place to work. It's just work. And so it should be the people that you hang out with all day long. I want to go to work with family and friends and enjoy them. If you're bitter and angry and mean, I don't want to work with you. And so we kind of thin that out. So we've created this bubble. They call it company culture, but we've created this family here that is just a joy to be with. And customers pick up on that. They go, oh, that was a delightful interaction. And I think we should make a difference in our community that is delightful, that does make a positive influence. That's just 56 years of business. I mean, we've been doing this a lot of decades. Lisa is that spark, that glue that makes it all come together. She's got gifts that I just cannot do. That's not me. I'm the visionary, rah-rah cheerleader. Here, follow me. I've got the flag. Let's go to the top of the hill and do this thing. It's going to be great. And she goes, oh boy, here he goes again. So we do make a good team, husband-wife team. It's the husband-wife working together isn't always good for folks. Not everyone can do it, I realize, but we've figured out how to do it. And I think the secret truly is finding that giftedness of your spouse or your major managers or your leaders that you work with, and then stay out of their lane. So it's whenever we get in trouble, it's when I try to cross over and do her job or she does mine. We try to know where the lanes are and try to drive forward and stick with those strengths. And that's worked out so well for us over the years. I don't know if that's probably advice that most of you don't even care about. But if you're a small business owner working for your spouse, there you go. Buy me a coffee and I'll share more. So we were talking at the bottom of the hour, though, with soils, how to get your soils. Gardening for newcomers, what's different here? And we had shared how to plant a tree, shrub, or vine. How do you get that plant to take in your soil when you don't have any soil? Nothing living in your soil. And we said dig the hole the same depth and 3 times the width, kind of round and saucer shaped. You're going to mix about 25% mulch to your native soil and then backfill around that and pack it down around the roots. That's how you reinvigorate your soil. That organic matter brings in the worms. It will recolonize the mycorrhizal fungi and things that are living, the positives that are in the soil that encourages deep roots from your plants. That's the secret. It also, if you're in heavy clay soil, it keeps it from compacting right back down to heavy clay soil again. So that organic particles keep it from compacting. You're changing the actual structure of the soil. Or if you've got heavy or clay, not clay, you've got granity type of soil, sandy soil, that's where it adds particles where it holds moisture. Otherwise, that water and food just floats right through and floats away. So it keeps it down around the root balls. Either way, you benefit. After you get it all planted, I'll sprinkle some all-purpose plant food. There is no food in your yard. There's just none. This is really hard for you Midwest folks where you've got 8-foot topsoil. You never have to fertilize. The plants can always just find their more food out there in the soil. Here we have 8 millimeter soil, if that. And so there just isn't the regular nutrients that are happening. And then we take fabric and rock, and we rock over everything to ensure that we never receive any organic matter into our soil. We'll never have a weed. We'll never have any positive nutrients coming into the root zone. Your plants are dependent on you completely for nutrients. If you don't fertilize regularly, more often than other parts of the country, more often than you read in your fine garden magazines or other places, because we're unique. The Southwest area, this northern Arizona area is unique. If you don't fertilize, those plants will turn yellow. You're seeing that indication right now. You can walk down your street. You can tell which neighbors fertilized last fall and which ones didn't, because those red-tip photinias are not rich forest green with red tips. They're now kind of a muted green with yellow insides. That's your deodar cedars are just thin and wispy because they haven't been fertilized as often as they should, because there's no food naturally showing up in your yard by itself. Fertilize every once in a while. It makes a difference, especially when they first go in the ground. So I'll sprinkle what you do is about 1 gallon plant will have about 1 tablespoon of food it needs. A 2 gallon plant, 2 tablespoons. A 5 gallon plant, 5 tablespoons. Guess how much a 15 gallon plant tree needs? About 15 tablespoons, or a big handful sprinkled around the root ball. And you want to use organic fertilizers or slow release. If you're going to use a synthetic, you want to make sure it says slow release on it. If you're going to use chemicals, just make sure usually they encapsulate that in some silicone or something so it breaks down slower. I encourage you to use organics. So we created our own here at the garden center called All-Purpose Food. I'll do that, and then I'll water it in with a root and grow. It's a liquid that stimulates new root growth. You're going to break some root hairs when you pull this thing out of the pot and put it in the ground. And so those new root hairs, we want to encourage new roots and discourage plant shock. And so root and grow is a liquid that I usually will mix up before I even start in a watering can, and I'll pour that around the roots, usually every 2-3 weeks this time of year, until I see the plant stabilized and flushing new growth. As soon as I see that new growth coming out, I go, okay, that's enough root and grow. We'll let the fertilizer take it from there, and then it just takes off. So that's the 3 things: mulch, fertilizer, all-purpose food, and then root and grow, a liquid rooting hormone. For trees, I would suggest if you're going to put some more trees in your yard, not so much for shrubs, not so much for vines, that kind of thing, but definitely for trees, we have a prevailing southwest wind that will start usually in March and not stop until July. It blows from the southwest, nonstop, relenting, day and night, all the time, never stops. And so what you'll find is new trees that are kind of thin and they're younger, the trunks aren't as rigid or as sturdy as they will be in a year or two. They'll start to lean to the northeast. So you can tell which trees in your neighborhood were not staked when they were first put in. All trees, like if you were to have our planting service come out and plant for you, every tree will have a stake on it, from little guys, 5 gallons, to great big ones, mainly just for a year. And then we'll put 2 stakes, one on either side of the trunk, on either side of the root ball, not the trunk. We'll tie once between those stakes. We want the tree to bend and to move. We just don't want it to lean. So for a really big tree, we might use real large, tall lodge poles and tie twice. But you want it to move. It's not a rigid thing. So many trees have a stake actually on the trunk of the tree when you buy it from the nursery. Take that stake off. That's simply for shipping the tree from the farm to the garden center and keep the trunk from being dinged. It's so they can get more trees on the truck per truckload. And so that will do damage. If you leave that on there, that tree will become, it's like putting your arm in a cast and never allowing you to bend your arm. What's going to happen to those muscles as they atrophy? They're just going to become weak and they're going to become weak. You don't want that for your trees. We want them strong and thick and robust that grows for hundreds of years in the future. That's the tree you want in your yard. And stake on either side of the root ball. Again, if you need more details on that, I've got a handout. It's free. We'll give it, even if you bought the tree from somewhere else. It doesn't matter. We want you to plant correctly. We'll give it to you. So ask for it. It's a Waters Planting Guide. There for you to make a difference in your yard this season. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
Now we've got a series of garden classes. Even last week we had 15 people in a snowstorm here talking about houseplants. So it's popular. We can have, this week it's on pruning. Next week it's gopher control and just keeping javelina and deer out. February 17th, we've got gardening for newcomers. If you're new to the area, this would really up your game so you know what to plant, when to plant it, and how to plant it, and all the details thereof. Lots of room for Q&A. I think I'm going to be teaching that class. If you just want to hang out with other cool people that happen to like gardening, come. It's a free class every Saturday at 9:30. Goes for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I'll bet the newcomer one goes a little bit longer because it's usually energetic. Lots of new people asking not stupid questions, but things you just need to know locally about local gardens. It's that over and over again. It's usually a pretty popular class. I would say come early. It can be standing room only. And so that's one. Then after that, it's fruit trees and raptor. We've got a bird, eagles, and we'll fly falcons and owls to the garden center March 3rd. Fragrant roses. We've just got over and over lots and lots of classes. The entire spring session is online at watersgardencenter.com. There's a big button on the front saying classes. Just hit that and you'll see them all. They're always free. We happen to take a donation for the raptors because we're doing them a favor. We've already paid to them. But if you wanted to help them buy more foods to promote raptor knowledge, they go to the schools and stuff. That's purely out of the kindness of your heart. That's the only time there's a fee. It's not even a fee. It's out of the kindness of your heart. Everything else is free with different guest speakers throughout the year. But season that you can learn a lot if you're new to the area. Even if you're not new to the area, it's just fun to hang out with other people with like interests. And so they're in that back greenhouse here at Waters Garden Center. There's room for about 75 chairs. It can be standing room only. If you bring a cup of coffee for me, I like a grande latte. That's my favorite. So you get extra brownie points, and I'll sweep off the seat for you in the front row. Just kidding. Also, I like jelly-filled donuts. But no, just kidding. We do have fun. But the season's starting to feel like it's taken off. So customers have been coming in. The numbers here at the garden center are off the charts. And so we're doing really well. I won't share all those details, but lots of people interested in gardening. It's almost as though the housing boom for northern Arizona they built last year. They've been inside. The curtains are up. They got the new refrigerator and sofa in, and now they're outdoors enjoying this beautiful weather, and they want to accessorize. This is one, too. If you've got that new house and it's just bland, it's not what you wanted, I think it's good, especially if you're a gardener. You need to put your thumbprint on that. In the short term, you can buy a basket full of pansies and put it by the front door. That'll be a fix for you gardeners. And I'll get a big pot for the back patio, or I'll add that privacy screen, or I'll do some more stuff later. But for now, I think it's good to accessorize your yard, to make it yours. And when you get it filled enough, that's when you add that art piece. The garden art is that final frosting that accents that back patio. As you watch a sunset, you go, look, or a bird feeder to bring in the hummingbirds. There are hummingbirds in the Mountain Garden Center. They're out there. You're going to have to take your hummingbird feeder and bring it inside, outside every day, but they're here. So the season started. That means it's happening. So enjoy it. Just stay within the seasons and know what your frost dates are, what you can put in when, and if in doubt, ask advice. Find a good garden center who knows what they're talking about, or talk to a neighbor that knows what they're talking about. My hope and prayers this year be that you'll have a more beautiful yard you can be proud of.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
Ouch! Oh man, another rock! Hi, I'm Rusty. You know, the shovel you're destroying trying to dig that hole? Sure, I get it. We got these beautiful plants at Waters Garden Center. Waters asked if they could plant them for you. But no, you had to do it yourself, even though they would plant, deliver, and guarantee your plants for 2 years. I hope I don't end up like that old pickaxe. Ouch! Prevent yard tool abuse. Waters Garden Center. They plant, deliver, and guarantee.
You've been listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, the owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to the area. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener.